Jake Morrison knew he was in trouble the moment his ship started shaking. The small scout vessel called Horizon Runner was supposed to be on a simple mission. He was supposed to map a new sector of space and return home in 2 weeks. But something went wrong. A strange energy wave hit his ship without warning, and now everything was falling apart. The control panel sparked and smoked. Warning lights flashed red all around him. Jake tried to steer the ship, but it would not respond. The planet below was getting closer and closer. He was going to crash, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Jake strapped himself tight into his seat and held on. The ship hit the atmosphere hard. Fire surrounded the vessel as it fell through the sky. The heat was terrible. The noise was deafening. Then came the impact. Metal screamed as the ship hit the ground and broke apart. Jake was thrown forward against his straps. His head hit something hard. Everything went dark for a moment. When he opened his eyes again, smoke filled the cabin. He coughed and quickly unbuckled himself. The emergency hatch opened with a hiss. Jake stumbled out onto red sand. His ship was destroyed. Pieces of it lay scattered across the desert like broken toys. Black smoke rose into a purple sky. Jake stood there for a moment, trying to understand what had happened. He checked his suit. The life support system still worked. His oxygen would last maybe 6 hours. The emergency beacon was sending out a distress signal, but Jake had no idea if anyone would hear it. This sector was unexplored. No ships came here. It might be weeks or even months before rescue arrived. Jake looked around at his new home. The planet was strange but beautiful. Red sand stretched in all directions. Tall crystal rocks rose from the ground like frozen lightning. 2 moons hung in the sky even though it was daytime. His scanner said the air could be breathed with a filter, and there were life forms somewhere nearby. He went back to the wreck and gathered what he could save. A medical kit, some water tablets, a few food bars, his pistol. Not much, but it would have to be enough. His scanner showed caves about 3 kilometers to the north. He needed shelter before night came. The walk was hard. The gravity here was stronger than Earth normal. Every step took effort. The heat made sweat run down his face. By the time Jake reached the caves, his legs were shaking with tiredness. He turned on his helmet light and went inside, grateful for the cool darkness. That was when he heard it. A soft crying sound came from deeper in the cave. It sounded sad and scared. It sounded young. Jake put his hand on his gun but did not draw it. Something about the sound made him pause. This was not the noise of a predator. This was something in pain, something that needed help. He followed the sound through twisting tunnels. The crying got louder. Finally, Jake came to a large chamber and stopped in his tracks. A creature lay on the cave floor. It was about the size of a big dog. Its body was covered in scales that shimmered with many colors. It had 4 legs, a long neck, and small wings folded against its sides. Its eyes were large and smart-looking, but they were cloudy with fever. A dragon. That was the only word Jake could think of. A small dragon. The creature saw Jake and tried to lift its head. It made a weak, sad sound. Jake could see it was very sick. Its breathing was hard and rough. Its scales looked dull and lifeless. Jake dropped his pack and moved slowly toward the dragon. He held up his hands to show he meant no harm. "Easy there, little one," he said softly. "Let me help you." The dragon was too weak to run away. As Jake got closer, he saw a deep cut along its side. The wound was infected and looked several days old. Green pus oozed from it. The smell was bad. Jake opened his medical kit. It was made for humans, but infection was infection no matter what species you were. He had been trained as a field medic in the military. He knew how to treat wounds. He cleaned the cut with antiseptic. The dragon whimpered but stayed still. Jake applied antibacterial gel to kill the infection. Then he covered the wound with synthetic bandages. The dragon's scales were hot under his hands, too hot. The creature had a fever. "You're going to be okay," Jake said quietly, stroking the dragon's head. He gave it a small dose of fever medicine, calculating the amount based on the creature's weight. For the next several hours, Jake stayed with the sick dragon. He gave it water from his canteen. He checked its wound. He talked to it in a soft voice. Slowly, the dragon's breathing got easier. Its eyes became clearer. Eventually, it fell into a deep sleep that looked more peaceful. Jake set up his camp in the chamber. He kept watch over his strange patient. He did not know what kind of creature this was. He did not know if its parents might come looking for it. But he could not have left it to suffer alone. As Jake finally closed his eyes to sleep, he had no idea that he was being watched. High on the mountain peak above the cave, a huge figure sat in the darkness. The Dragon Emperor Jakar had been searching for his missing son for 3 days. He had found him at last, but what he saw in that cave surprised him. The Emperor's eyes could see through stone and darkness. He watched the small human tend to his child with gentle hands. He saw the human use his own limited supplies to help a creature he did not know. He saw compassion where he expected fear or greed. Jakar had lived for thousands of years. He had seen many species. Most of them wanted to use dragons or destroy them. The Irvnathi had tried to kidnap his children for ransom. The Kelthros had tried to kill his people to harvest their scales and bones for weapons. He had learned to expect the worst from other races. But this human was different. This human asked for nothing, expected nothing. He simply helped because someone needed help. The Emperor watched through the night as the human slept beside his son. He watched as the boy woke once and the human immediately checked on him. He watched as the human gave the last of his water to a creature he had just met. By morning, Jakar had made a decision. This human would be tested. If he was truly as kind as he seemed, then perhaps it was time to learn more about his species. If he was not, if this was some trick, then the Emperor would know soon enough. The dragon civilization had hidden from the galaxy for 10,000 years. They had withdrawn after being betrayed too many times. But maybe, just maybe, it was time to try again. And it would all start with this one human who had shown kindness to a sick child. Jakar spread his enormous wings and prepared to meet Jake Morrison. What happened next would change the fate of 2 civilizations, all because one man could not walk past someone who needed help. Jake woke up to complete silence, the kind of quiet that made his heart beat faster. Something was wrong. He sat up quickly and looked around the cave chamber. The little dragon was gone. He jumped to his feet and searched the area. His supplies were still there. Nothing else had been touched. But the small dragon he had cared for all night had vanished like it was never there. Even the soft bedding he had made for it was gone. "Hello?" Jake called out. His voice bounced off the cave walls. No answer came back. He checked his scanner, but it was acting strange. The readings made no sense. Either the crash had broken it, or something was blocking its signals. Jake gathered his things and headed back through the tunnels toward the cave entrance. He needed to figure out what was going on. The morning sun was just coming up when Jake stepped outside. Golden light painted the rocks and sand. He took 2 steps and froze completely. Standing in front of him, blocking the entire cave entrance, was a dragon so big it seemed impossible. It was as large as a whale, maybe larger. Its scales looked like gold mixed with black stone. Its wings were folded but could probably cover a whole city block. But it was the eyes that held Jake in place. They were ancient and intelligent and looking right through him. Jake's hand moved toward his gun before his brain caught up. The gesture was stupid. His little pistol would do nothing to this creature. It would be like throwing rocks at a battleship. The dragon's voice filled Jake's head. It did not come through his ears. It spoke directly into his mind. "I am Jakar, High Emperor of the Draconic Sovereignty. You helped my son." Jake swallowed hard. He forced himself to stay calm. "I found him hurt. I couldn't just leave him there." The Emperor's huge head tilted slightly. He studied Jake like a scientist examining something under a microscope. "Your kind is unknown to us. Your technology is basic. Your body is weak. Yet you used your limited supplies for a creature you did not know. You expected nothing in return." "He was hurt and alone," Jake said simply. "That's reason enough." A deep rumbling sound came from the Emperor. It took Jake a moment to realize the dragon was laughing. "Interesting. Most species we have met respond to my son with greed or fear. The Irvnathi tried to capture him for money. The Kelthros tried to kill him because they see dragons as threats. You chose a different path. How is he?" Jake asked. "Is the infection clearing up?" The Emperor's eyes seemed to glow brighter. "You still worry about him. Even now when you stand before someone who could kill you with a thought." "Why?" "Because I want to know he's okay," Jake said, confused by the question. "I'm not a real doctor. I only had basic medical training. I did what I could, but infections can be tricky." Jakar lowered his massive head until it was level with Jake. Jake could feel heat coming off the dragon's scales. "I could have killed you the moment you entered that cave. I watched from above, wondering what this small creature would do to my vulnerable son. The draconic sovereignty has learned to be careful. We are powerful, but power attracts those who want to use us or destroy us. Jake stood his ground even though every instinct told him to run. I understand being careful, but if you're going to judge all humans by what I did, you should know I'm just one person. We're complicated, just like every species, I guess. Indeed, the Emperor agreed, which is why I must know more. You will come with me. Before Jake could say anything, the world turned into light. When things became solid again, he was standing on a platform made of crystal stone. It stuck out from a mountainside. Below him was a valley filled with buildings that mixed into nature so well you could barely tell them apart. Dragons of all sizes and colors moved through the air and along the ground. Their scales caught the sunlight and sparkled like jewels. The sanctuary of eternal flame, Jakar explained. Home to my people, we have hidden from the rest of the galaxy for 10,000 of your years. We withdrew after too many betrayals. Too many wars fought by lesser species who wanted our power or feared it. A smaller dragon bounded up to them. It looked just like the sick hatchling Jake had helped, but now it was healthy and full of energy. The young dragon chirped happily and pressed its head against Jake's leg. My son Fern says you were gentle with him, Jakar said. He says you spoke softly and your touch brought comfort, not pain. Jake knelt down and checked the wound he had bandaged. It was healing well. The infection was gone. I'm glad. You're a brave little guy. Fern made a pleased sound and spread his wings to show off. You will stay here as my guest, the Emperor declared. It was not a question. It was an order. I want to understand your species. If humans have the ability to show real compassion toward those who are different, then maybe it is time for the draconic sovereignty to rejoin the galactic community. But if you are unusual, a rare kindness in a cruel species, then we will stay hidden. Jake realized what was being asked of him. He was not just representing himself anymore. He was Earth's voice to a civilization that had hidden itself from the stars for thousands of years. I'll tell you anything you want to know, Jake said. But you should understand humanity isn't perfect. We've made mistakes. We're still learning. Honesty, Jakar observed. Another interesting quality. Come, Jake Morrison of Earth, let us talk about your people, and I will decide if they are worthy of knowing mine. As Jake followed the Dragon Emperor into the sanctuary, with little Fern bouncing happily beside him, he wondered how he would explain this in his report, if he ever got home to write one. Over the next few days, Jake learned about Dragon Society. The sanctuary was more advanced than Earth in many ways. They had technology that seemed like magic. They could travel between stars without ships. They could communicate across vast distances with their minds. They had lived in peace for 10,000 years, but they were also lonely. They had cut themselves off from the galaxy because they had been hurt too badly. They had trusted other species and been betrayed. They had offered friendship and received violence in return. So they hid, keeping their children safe but also keeping them isolated. Fern became Jake's constant companion. The young dragon followed him everywhere. He showed Jake hidden gardens with glowing plants. He introduced Jake to other young dragons. They played simple games together. Fern was fascinated by Jake's tablet computer and would watch for hours as Jake showed him pictures of Earth. Jake found himself explaining what oceans were to a creature who had never seen one. He described forest and rain and snow. In return, Fern tried to teach him basic dragon concepts, though many did not translate well into human language. Every day, Jake met with Emperor Jakar in a huge chamber made of black glass. The Emperor asked questions about humanity with the care of a scholar and the doubt of someone who had been hurt before. Tell me about your wars, Jakar demanded one day. Jake did not try to hide the truth. We fought too many. Over land, resources, beliefs, religion, sometimes for reasons that made sense at the time, sometimes for reasons that never made sense at all. And yet you speak of peace as your goal. Because we learned something from all that fighting, Jake said. War costs more than we ever gained from it. We're not perfect, but we're trying to be better than we were. Jakar's tail moved across the floor in a gesture Jake had learned meant deep thought. The Kelthros said the same before they tried to wipe out the shifting tribes. The Year of Nathi spoke of honor before they enslaved 3 worlds. Then judge us by what we do, not what we say, Jake replied. I can't promise humanity will never make mistakes, but I can tell you we keep trying to fix them. Days passed. Jake told the Emperor about Earth, about cities and farms, about art and music, about science and exploration, about the good and the bad. He held nothing back, and slowly, very slowly, he began to see Jakar's attitude change. The Emperor was still cautious, but the deep suspicion was fading. He began to ask different questions, not about humanity's capacity for violence, but about their capacity for growth. On the 5th day, everything changed. A loud alarm echoed through the valley. Dragons took to the air in organized formations. Jakar appeared beside Jake in a blur of motion. "A ship approaches," the Emperor announced. His voice was cold and hard. "One of yours. It is damaged and will crash within the hour." Jake's heart jumped. "The USS Valor. They came looking for me." "They have entered our protected space," Jakar said. "They will not leave it." "They don't know you're here," Jake said quickly. "They're just trying to save me. Please let me contact them. I can explain." The Emperor stared at him for a long moment. "If I allow this, I risk everything. The location of the sanctuary will be known." "Then you have a choice," Jake said carefully. "You can destroy the ship and prove that being kind is stupid, or you can help them and maybe prove that it's not." Fern chirped nervously and pressed against his father's leg. The young dragon looked between Jakar and Jake. Jakar closed his eyes. When he opened them, they blazed with inner fire. "Very well. We will try your idea, Jake Morrison. But know this. If your people prove false, you will share their fate." "I understand," Jake said. "Thank you." The Emperor spread his enormous wings. "Come, we have a ship to save." Commander Lisa Brooks had been flying rescue missions for 12 years. She had saved people from asteroid strikes, engine failures, and pirate attacks. But she had never seen anything like this. The USS Valor was dying around her. The same energy wave that destroyed Jake Morrison's ship had damaged hers. Main power was failing. Life support was running on backup systems. Her crew of 7 was running out of time. "Captain, the sensors are going crazy," Lieutenant Sam Carter called from his station. "I'm reading huge energy signatures all around us. They just appeared out of nowhere." "Show me," Lisa ordered. She pulled herself to the main screen despite the ship's violent shaking. What she saw was impossible. Creatures flew beside her dying ship, enormous creatures that moved through space like it was water. Their scales glowed with inner light. Their eyes held clear intelligence. They matched the Valor's speed perfectly. "Are those?" Lieutenant Danny Pierce whispered from engineering. "Are those dragons?" Before Lisa could answer, a voice filled the bridge. It did not come through the radio. It came from inside their heads, clear and powerful. "Human vessel, you are in protected space. We have one of your kind aboard. He speaks well of your character. Do not make him wrong about you." Lisa's training took over despite the impossibility of what was happening. "This is Commander Lisa Brooks of the Earth vessel Valor. We mean no harm. We are searching for our lost crew member, Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison. He is here and safe. Your ship, however, will not survive the next 10 minutes without help." Lisa looked at her crew. They were scared but still at their posts. Good people, all of them. She made her choice. "We accept any help you can give us." A wise decision. What happened next was like something from a dream. The dragons surrounded the Valor. Their bodies began to glow brighter. Streams of pure energy flowed between them, creating a web of light around the damaged vessel. Lisa felt the ship stabilize. Alarms stopped blaring. Systems that had been dead suddenly came back online. "Captain," Sam breathed. "They're not just stopping our fall. They're fixing us." Through the view screen, Lisa saw one dragon approaching. It was bigger than all the others. On its back were 2 figures. One was clearly another dragon, smaller and younger. The other was wearing a human pressure suit. "Jake," she whispered. The massive dragon spoke again in their minds. "I am Jakar, High Emperor of the Draconic Sovereignty. Your crew member has been my guest. He will explain everything. But understand this. You are the first outsiders to enter the sanctuary in 10,000 years. How you act in the next hours will determine whether you are the last." A small pod launched from the Valor and moved toward the dragon. Minutes later, Jake Morrison floated through the airlock. The young dragon seemed sad to see him go. The reunion on the bridge was emotional. Lisa pulled Jake into a fierce hug. The crew gathered around, clapping his shoulders and checking that he was really okay. But the moment was brief. They all knew they stood on the edge of something huge. Jake quickly explained what had happened. The crash, finding Fern, meeting Zakar, the 5 days of careful conversation. As he spoke, Lisa understood how big this situation was. They were not just meeting a new species. They were being judged. "Captain," Jake said seriously, "the dragons have been hurt badly by other races. They need to see that we're different." "How do we prove that?" Lisa asked. "By being exactly what we are." "Nothing more, nothing less," Jakar's voice returned. "Commander Brooks, I will allow your crew to land in the sanctuary for repairs. Your vessel will be fully restored. In exchange, your crew will remain for 7 days as my guests. You will be treated well, but you will be watched. At the end of that time, I will decide whether humanity is worthy of knowing my people exist." Lisa looked at her crew. Sam gave her a slight nod. Danny managed a thumbs up despite his fear. The others nodded their agreement. "We accept your hospitality, Emperor Jakar," Lisa said formally, "and we thank you for saving our lives. Do not thank me yet. That depends on what I learn from you." The Valor was guided down to a landing platform carved from the mountain. As the crew emerged, they found themselves surrounded by dragons of every size and color. All of them watched with intense curiosity. Young Fern immediately ran over to Jake and chirped excitedly. The sight of a dragon playing with a human seemed to ease some of the tension. Lisa approached Jakar, who sat on a raised platform. She kept her body language open and friendly. "Your Majesty, I don't have fancy speeches prepared for meeting dragon emperors. But I can tell you this. My crew and I are scientists and explorers. We came out here to learn, not to conquer. If Jake's actions showed you anything good about humanity, it's because he represents what we try to be." The Emperor's eyes focused on her. "Tell me, Commander, if you discovered we had technology far beyond yours, what would you do?" Lisa answered honestly. "I would be excited to learn from you if you wanted to teach us. But I would not demand it. Advanced technology in the wrong hands causes more problems than it solves. We've learned that lesson the hard way." Another honest answer. "Your species shows promise." Jakar's gaze swept over the crew. "You will be separated into groups and hosted by different dragon families. You will eat with us, talk with us, learn our ways as we learn yours. At the end of 7 days, we will meet and decide your fate." The crew was led away to different parts of the sanctuary. Each human would stay with a different dragon family. It was a test, Lisa knew. The dragons wanted to see how humans acted in many different situations. Lieutenant Sam Carter was taken to a family of scholar dragons. They spent their time preserving ancient knowledge in massive libraries carved from crystal. Sam was amazed by their star maps that showed places humans had never seen. The dragons were equally amazed by Sam's music player. By the second day, they were teaching each other songs. Danny Pierce stayed with artisan dragons who shaped metal and stone. They used their fire breath to forge materials at the molecular level. Danny showed them human engineering designs. The dragons showed him techniques humans had never imagined. By the 4th day, they were working together on new alloy combinations that were stronger than anything either species had made before. Karen Walsh, the crew's medic, was hosted by healer dragons. They compared medical techniques for hours. Karen was stunned to learn that dragons could use bioelectric fields to speed up healing. The dragons were equally interested in human concepts like antibiotics and vaccines. They had never needed such things because their immune systems worked differently. Each crew member had similar experiences. They taught and they learned. They shared meals and stories. They laughed together despite language barriers. Most importantly, they made real friends. Jake spent most of his time with Fern. The young dragon had decided he was Jake's personal guardian. Fern showed him hidden caves with glowing mushrooms. He took Jake flying over crystal valleys. He introduced Jake to what seemed like every young dragon in the sanctuary. Through Fern, Jake learned that dragon children were curious and playful, not so different from human kids. Lisa had the honor and challenge of meeting with Emperor Jakar every day. Their conversations covered everything from philosophy to politics, from history to hopes for the future. The Emperor asked hard questions about humanity's past. He asked about wars, environmental damage, and social injustice. Lisa answered honestly. She never tried to hide humanity's mistakes, but she always emphasized the ability to grow and change. "We are not a perfect species," Lisa told him on the 5th day. "We have hurt each other and our world, but we are learning. Every generation tries to be better than the last. That's all any species can do, right? Try to improve." Jakar had no quick answer to that. Lisa thought that was a good sign. On the 3rd day, Lisa was shown something special. Jakar brought her to a memorial carved into the mountainside. Thousands of names were etched into the stone in flowing dragon script. These are the fallen, the Emperor said quietly. Dragons killed by the Kelthros in the betrayal wars. We had welcomed them. We shared our knowledge. We offered our strength as allies. They responded by trying to harvest our scales for weapons and our bones for ship hulls. We won that war, but the cost taught us a terrible lesson about trust. Lisa stood silently, feeling the weight of those names. Finally she spoke. My species has a saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I understand why you withdrew, but maybe there's a middle path between isolation and blind trust. What path would that be? Careful friendship, Lisa suggested. Share a little, watch, learn. If it works, share more. If it doesn't, you can withdraw again. You don't have to decide everything about humanity based on us alone. Shakar made that rumbling sound that was his laugh. You speak wisdom, Lisa Brooks. Perhaps that is why Jake Morrison chose kindness over fear. Perhaps your species does have the capacity for growth. We're trying, Lisa said simply. That's all we can do. The days passed quickly. The crew learned dragon customs. They learned which gestures meant respect and which meant insult. They learned basic words in the dragon language. They shared human customs in return. They taught the dragons about handshakes and high fives. They explained human holidays and traditions. More importantly, they formed bonds. Sam became close friends with a dragon scholar named Kess who loved. The seventh day began with unusual quiet in the sanctuary. The dragons seemed tense, as if they knew something important was about to happen. The human crew felt it too. Today was the day of judgment. Lisa gathered her crew in the chamber where the Valor was parked. The ship had been completely repaired. It looked better than new, actually. The dragons had not just fixed the damage. They had improved systems that were failing before the crash. They had reinforced weak points in the hull. They had even cleaned out years of accumulated dust and grime from the air filters. Whatever happens today, Lisa told her team, I want you to know I'm proud of all of you. We came here to rescue Jake and ended up representing all of humanity. You handled it with grace and honor. Sam spoke up first. Captain, I don't think we failed. The dragons have been kind to us. They've shared their knowledge. They've treated us like equals, not like primitives. Kess told me yesterday that many dragons want to end the isolation. Danny added. They're tired of hiding. They want to explore the galaxy again. We gave them hope that it might be safe to try. Karen nodded. The healer I stayed with said something similar. She said the young dragons especially are eager to see what's beyond their valley. They've only heard stories about the greater galaxy. Jake stood near the entrance with Fern at his side. The young dragon had barely left him alone since learning today was decision day. Whatever Jakar decides, I don't regret helping Fern. Even if it all falls apart, at least we tried. A deep voice resonated through the chamber. Not in their ears, but in their minds. It is time. Come to the Grand Hall. The crew followed dragon guides through the sanctuary. They passed families that had hosted them. Each dragon they had befriended nodded or made friendly sounds as they passed. Some of the younger dragons looked worried. The Grand Hall was enormous. The walls seemed to be made of frozen fire that gave off warm light. Dragons filled the space, thousands of them arranged in a great circle. At the center on a raised platform sat Emperor Jakar. His golden scales caught the light and blazed like a small sun. The human crew walked to the center and stood together. Lisa felt her heart pounding but kept her face calm. This was it. The moment everything came down to Jakar spread his massive wings. The hall fell instantly silent. When he spoke, his voice filled the minds of everyone present. 7 days ago, I gave humanity a test. They did not know they were being tested, but a test it was. My son was injured and alone. A human found him and chose compassion over caution. This human, Jake Morrison, could have ignored him. Could have captured him. Could have used the situation for gain. He chose kindness instead. Fern chirped and pressed against Jake's leg. Jake gently touched the young dragon's head. I brought more humans here to see if that kindness was unusual or normal. I watched you all carefully. I saw Lieutenant Carter share music with scholars, despite knowing nothing of our culture. I saw Engineer Pierce work with artisans, freely sharing knowledge without demanding payment. I saw Medic Walsh tend to a dragon child's injury with the same care she would show her own kind. Jakar's gaze swept across everyone gathered. But more than individual actions, I saw something deeper. You humans are curious about us, but not greedy. You admire our abilities, but do not scheme to steal them. You are honest about your flaws while working to overcome them. You treat us not as resources to exploit or threats to eliminate, but as people to know. The Emperor paused. The silence was so complete that Lisa could hear her own breathing. 10,000 years ago, we withdrew from the galaxy because we learned a painful truth. Power attracts predators and parasites. We thought isolation was wisdom. Perhaps it was for a time. But isolation is also stagnation. We have been so focused on protecting ourselves that we forgot why protection matters. We protected our lives but forgot to live them. Shakar turned to Jake directly. You, Jake Morrison, reminded me of something I had forgotten. You saw a vulnerable creature and your first instinct was to help, not to calculate advantage. That is not the action of a predator. That is the mark of a civilized being. The Emperor's voice grew stronger, addressing all the dragons now. I have made my decision. The draconic sovereignty will end its isolation. We will cautiously, carefully begin to engage with the galactic community once more, and humanity will be our first formal ally in this new age. A sound moved through the dragon assembly. Some voices were excited, others were concerned, but none seemed angry or opposed. Lisa realized Jakar had been preparing his people for this possibility all along. However, the Emperor continued, this alliance comes with terms. Humanity will not receive our technology freely. You will not be given weapons or tools beyond your current level. What you will receive is knowledge shared slowly as trust is built. And in return, you will teach us what you know of compassion, of resilience, of adapting and improving. Lisa stepped forward. She stood straight despite the weight of the moment. On behalf of humanity, I accept these terms. We don't want your technology, Your Majesty. We want your friendship. We want to learn from you and have you learn from us. That's worth more than any weapon or tool. Shakar lowered his massive head in a gesture of respect. Then let it be known across the galaxy. The draconic sovereignty has returned and humanity stands with us. The chamber erupted in sound. Dragons made calls that sounded like songs made of fire and wind. Some took to the air in celebration. The human crew hugged each other, relief and joy washing over them. Young dragons swarmed Jake, chirping and bouncing around him. Farron seemed especially proud, as if he personally had made this all happen. In a way, Lisa thought he had. The celebration lasted for hours. Dragons and humans shared food and drink. Sam played music that dragons had never heard before, and they loved it. Danny showed interested young dragons how human tools worked. Karen demonstrated basic first aid on a willing volunteer who wanted to learn human medicine, but there was work to be done too. Shakar called Lisa and Jake to a private chamber later that evening. This is just the beginning, the Emperor said. The galaxy will be shocked to learn we still exist. Some will welcome our return. Others will fear it. We must be careful about how we re-enter galactic affairs. What do you need from us? Lisa asked. First, we need to establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth. You will return home with messages for your leaders. We will send an ambassador with you if you agree. An ambassador? Jake said. One of your people on Earth? Yes. Someone young enough to adapt, but old enough to understand the weight of this responsibility. Shakar looked at Fearn, who had followed them into the chamber. My son has expressed interest in this role. Fern chirped excitedly and spread his wings. He's still so young, Lisa said carefully. Are you sure? He was young when your kind first showed compassion to him, Shakar replied. That experience shaped his view of humanity. Who better to represent us than one who already sees your species as friends rather than threats? What about his safety? Jake asked. Earth has a lot of people. Not all of them will react well to a dragon in their midst. He will have guards, though they will remain hidden. And he will have you, Jake Morrison, if you agree to serve as his guide and companion. Jake looked at Fern, who looked back with hopeful eyes. Of course I agree. We're friends, right, buddy? Fern trilled happily and wrapped his tail around Jake's leg. There is more, Shakar continued. We have technology that could help humanity with many problems. Clean energy, medical advances, sustainable agriculture. But we will not simply give these things to you. You must earn them through cooperation and mutual respect. That's fair, Lisa said. Anything just given is rarely appreciated. Anything earned together is treasured. Spoken like a true ally, the Emperor said with approval. You will leave tomorrow. We will send Fern and 2 advisors with you. They will help establish the first dragon embassy on Earth. This is a historic moment for both our species. It's also terrifying, Jake admitted. What if we mess this up? Then we will deal with that when it happens, Shakar said simply. Perfection is not required. Only honest effort and good faith. That night the human crew prepared to depart. They packed their belongings and said goodbye to the dragon families who had hosted them. There were tears on both sides. Friendships had been formed that would last lifetimes. Sam received a crystal containing dragon songs as a parting gift. Danny was given a sample of the new alloy they had created together. Karen received medical texts that would advance human medicine by decades. Each crew member left with gifts and with memories they would never forget. Jake sat with Fern on their favorite balcony one last time, watching the twin moons rise over the sanctuary. "Are you scared?" Jake asked the young dragon. "Earth will be very different from here." Fern made a sound that Jake had learned meant confidence and excitement. The dragon pressed his head against Jake's shoulder. "Yeah," Jake said with a smile. "We'll be okay. We'll figure it out together." Below them, the sanctuary prepared for a new era. After 10,000 years of isolation, the draconic sovereignty was about to rejoin the galaxy. It all started because one human could not walk past a creature in need. Tomorrow, Jake Morrison and his dragon companion would return to Earth and change the course of human history. But tonight, the USS Valor approached Earth 3 weeks after leaving the sanctuary. Those 3 weeks had been spent preparing Fern and his 2 dragon advisors for what they would encounter. Jake had shown them endless videos of Earth cities, forests, oceans, and mountains. He had explained human customs, governments, and social structures, but nothing could fully prepare them for the reality. "There are so many of you," Fern said, his mental voice full of wonder as Earth grew larger on the view screen. "I knew humans were numerous, but seeing it is different." 8 billion people, Lisa confirmed, spread across 7 continents, hundreds of countries and cultures. "It's going to be overwhelming at first." The 2 dragon advisors, Kess and Thane, were older and more reserved than Fern. Kess was a female scholar with deep blue scales. Thane was a male warrior with scales like polished bronze. Both had lived through the betrayal wars and remembered why dragons had hidden. They were cautious but willing to try. "We have sent word ahead," Kess said. "Earth's leaders have been informed of our arrival. They are prepared to meet us." "Prepared might be a strong word," Danny muttered. More like panicking quietly. He was not wrong. The message sent ahead had caused chaos on Earth. World leaders had emergency meetings. Scientists debated whether it was real or a hoax. Religious groups argued about what it meant. Social media exploded with theories and speculation. By the time the Valor entered orbit, the entire planet was holding its breath. Earth control. "This is USS Valor requesting permission to land." Lisa broadcast on all channels. "Valor, this is Earth control. You are cleared for landing at Site 1. The whole world is watching. No pressure." Lisa smiled despite her nerves. "Acknowledged Earth control. Beginning descent." The ship landed at a specially prepared site in what used to be called Edwards Air Force Base in California. It was chosen for its size, security, and distance from major population centers, just in case things went wrong. A massive crowd had gathered beyond the security perimeter. News drones filled the sky. World leaders and their advisors waited in a designated greeting area. Military forces were positioned at a distance, ready but not threatening. Everyone had agreed that this moment needed to be handled perfectly. The Valor's ramp extended. Lisa emerged first, followed by her crew. They looked tired but triumphant. The crowd beyond the barriers erupted in cheers. The crew had left on a rescue mission and returned as history makers. Then Fern appeared at the top of the ramp. The cheering stopped. Silence fell across the entire area. The young dragon paused, taking in the scene. His iridescent scales caught the sunlight and shimmered with rainbow colors. His wings were folded but still impressive. His eyes, large and intelligent, swept across the crowd. Jake walked beside him, one hand resting gently on Fern's neck. "It's okay," he said softly. "Just like we practiced." Fern descended the ramp with careful dignity. Kess and Thane followed behind him, much larger and more intimidating. The sight of 3 dragons walking on Earth soil for the first time in recorded history was breathtaking. The official greeting committee stood frozen. President Martinez of Earth United had been chosen to speak first, but she seemed to have forgotten her prepared speech. She stared at the dragons with wide eyes. It was Fearon who broke the tension. He approached the president and made a formal bow that Jake had taught him. Then he spoke, his mental voice gentle and clear. "Greetings, leaders of Earth. I am Fern, son of Emperor Jakar, first ambassador of the draconic sovereignty to humanity. We come in friendship and hope. We offer alliance and cooperation. We ask only for the same in return. President Martinez recovered her composure. She stepped forward and bowed in response. "Welcome to Earth, Ambassador Fern. On behalf of all humanity, we are honored by your presence. Your father's message has been received and discussed by leaders worldwide. We accept the offer of alliance with joy and gratitude." The formal words were important, but what happened next was more meaningful. A small girl, no more than 5 years old, broke free from her mother in the crowd. She ran past security before anyone could stop her. She ran straight toward Fern with a flower clutched in her tiny hand. Security moved to intercept her, but Jake held up a hand to stop them. The little girl reached Fern and held up the flower, a simple daisy picked from her yard that morning. "For you," she said shyly. "You're pretty." Fern lowered his head so he was level with the child. He gently took the flower in his claws and made a soft, pleased sound. "Thank you, small human. You are brave and kind." The girl giggled and reached up to touch Fern's scales. "You're warm, like sunshine." Her mother reached them, apologizing frantically. But President Martinez was smiling. "No apology needed. I think your daughter just made history more effectively than any of us could have." The moment was captured by 1,000 cameras. The image of a small human child offering a flower to a dragon, both smiling, would become the symbol of Earth's first contact. It would be printed on commemorations and taught in schools for generations. It represented hope, innocence, and the possibility of friendship across species. The formal meetings came later. Fern, Kess, and Thane met with world leaders in a specially designed conference chamber. The dragons shared information about the draconic sovereignty. They explained their history, their technology, and their reasons for isolation. They outlined what an alliance would mean. The leaders asked questions. Some were practical, about trade and technology sharing. Others were philosophical, about culture and values. A few were concerned about security and the balance of power in the galaxy. The dragons answered everything honestly. "We do not expect instant trust," Thane said during one session. "We know trust must be earned. We offer cooperation in stages. Small projects first. If they succeed, we expand. If problems arise, we pause and address them. We have learned patience over 10,000 years. What can you offer us?" asked Prime Minister Chen of the Asian Coalition. "Knowledge first," Kess replied. "We can teach you about clean energy that does not harm your world. Medical techniques that can cure diseases you currently cannot. Agricultural methods that can feed your growing population without destroying your environment. But we will not simply give you blueprints. We will work together, learning from each other." "And what do you want in return?" asked Chancellor Okonkwo of the African Union. "Friendship," Fern said simply. "Cultural exchange. The chance to explore the galaxy again without fear. We have been alone for so long. We want to be part of something larger again." The honesty was disarming. These were not conquerors demanding tribute. These were not traders seeking profit. These were people looking for connection. Over the following weeks, the process of alliance building began. A dragon embassy was established in Geneva, chosen for its history of international cooperation. Fearn took up residence there, with Jake as his official liaison. Kess and Thane served as cultural advisors. Joint projects were initiated. Dragon engineers worked with human scientists on a clean fusion reactor that could provide unlimited energy without pollution. Dragon healers shared techniques with human doctors to treat previously incurable conditions. Dragon teachers exchanged knowledge with human scholars about history, philosophy, and art. But it was not all smooth. There were protests from groups who feared the dragons. There were incidents where humans said or did insensitive things out of ignorance. There were misunderstandings about customs and communication. During one difficult moment, a human religious leader publicly called the dragons demons. The statement caused tension and anger. Thane wanted to respond with equal force. But Fern chose a different path. He requested a private meeting with the religious leader. Jake accompanied him, worried about how it would go. The leader, Archbishop Paulo, was an old man set in his ways. He greeted them coldly. "I agreed to this meeting out of respect for the alliance. But I will not change my position. Your kind are not natural. You do not fit into the divine order." Fern listened patiently. Then he spoke gently. "I understand your fear. When my father first encountered humans, he too was afraid. He had been hurt by other species. He thought all outsiders were threats. But Jake Morrison showed him something different. Compassion has no species. Kindness has no scales or skin. These things come from the soul, and all thinking beings have souls. How can you speak of souls? The Archbishop demanded. You are beasts who learn to speak. And humans are primates who learn to think, Fern countered without anger. Does that make your souls less real? I do not claim to know the divine plan. But I know that Jake Morrison saved my life when he had no reason to. I know that good people exist in both our species. And I know that fear and hatred help no one. The Archbishop was silent for a long moment. Finally, he said, You speak with wisdom beyond your years. Dragon, I learned from a good teacher, Fern replied, glancing at Jake. He showed me that the measure of a being is not their form, but their choices. The Archbishop did not immediately change his stance, but he agreed to study and learn more before making further public statements. It was a small victory, but victories often start small. Months passed. The alliance grew stronger. The first human visitors were invited to the sanctuary. The first dragon students enrolled in Earth universities. Trade routes were established.